The reading from Emmett Fox for May 7th is titled A Mandate for Perfection. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And that is from Matthew chapter 5, verse 48. Consider carefully what Jesus is saying. He is commanding us to be perfect, even as God himself is perfect. And as we know that Jesus will not command the impossible, he has here given his authority to the doctrine that it is possible for man and woman to become divinely perfect. And more than this, he is putting it forward as a thing that will have to be actually done. Now, if we really are the children of God, capable of eternal and flawless perfection, there can be no real power in evil, not even in sin, to keep us permanently in bondage. So now let us lose no further time before commencing our upward march. Let us now, at this very moment, if we have not already done so, rise up like the prodigal son amid the husks of materiality and limitation, and cry with all confidence in the teachings and promises of Jesus, I will arise and go to my Father. And that last scripture, I will arise and go to my Father, is from Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, verse 18.
And what a wonderful way to segue into what I've been led to talk about today. The title is The Problem of Small Moral Choices. And it covers a slightly broader field, but we're emphasizing this part. Those of you who've visited with us often know that one of my mantras is that our spiritual walk should be seeking an ever closer approximate, that we serve as an ever closer approximation of divine love. And with the understanding that we're human, so we can try to come closer, but we can also fall back. But the divine welcomes us to continue forward and forward and forward. And I came across an article about the late Clayton Christensen. He did a talk, and then it became a book called How Will You Measure Your Life? And it fits directly with what Fox is talking here, in the sense that he argues that all of us have a calling to do something of impact, positive impact on this earth. To quote from some of his writings, intimate, loving, and enjoying relationships with our family and close friends will be among the sources of the deepest joy in our lives. And he goes on to say, the only metrics that will truly matter to my life are the individuals whom I have been able to help one by one to become better people. Now, I differ with him some on this. Yes, enduring relationships, intimate, loving relationships are wonderful and to be valued and cultivated. But to me, there's a broader stretch. I suggest that each of us being here, having the spark of God within, being of God and in God, have a calling to lift to a higher place, this place that we live in, this world that we live in. Now, when I say that, I don't want to be misunderstood as saying each of us needs to become another Martin Luther King, another Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not talking that we each have a responsibility for some huge change, but each of us in service can find and has a calling to, I suggest, even a small macro place to lift up. It can be creating more beauty by cultivating a garden, by cultivating a garden of, what do they call them, natural, original plants in the area so that the insects and birds have something to survive on. It can be rescuing a child from an abusive situation, or simply befriending a child who lives next door and could use a little extra love. It's not for me to tell you what your opportunity is, or how big or how small, but don't think you cannot do something. For myself, if I'm walking down a rainy street and I see a worm out on the sidewalk heading toward sure drowning, I'll pick it up and I'll put it on a higher ground. That's making the world a better place. That's not the only thing I do, but to me, that's just about as important as reaching out and giving someone a hug who needs it. We're all part and parcel of this particular existence. So what does that have to do with the problem of small moral choices? Well, continuing to quote Christensen, in order to really find happiness, you need to continue looking for opportunities that you believe are meaningful, in which you will be able to learn new things, to succeed, to be given more and more responsibility to shoulder. Because if the decisions you make about where you invest your blood, sweat, and tears are not consistent with the person you aspire to be, then you'll never become the person you aspire to be. And this is where we start getting into moral choices, into choices. He says you can talk all you want about having a clear purpose and strategy for your life, but ultimately, this means nothing if you are not investing the resources you have in a way that is consistent with your strategy. In the end, a strategy is nothing but good intentions unless it is effectively implemented. So what's the message here? Start doing things. If you have a particular sense of a goal, move things towards that goal, but don't walk away from small things. I have a neighbor here who once a week I see walk up and down our neighborhood with a bag and with a picker-upper picking up the garbage that's on the street. It doesn't seem like much, but is he lifting the world up? Yes. So going on, he says, I can't promise you perfect results for your activities, but what I can promise you is that you won't get it right if you don't commit to keep trying. So don't let, oh, I'm so inept, or I'm so flawed, or this is so big, stop you from moving forward. I see here, and those of you who've been around for a while, you see people beginning to try their hand at giving messages, of being sensitive towards information from the other side to share with us here. That's moving forward. That's taking the risk, but also continuing the commitment to try to be in touch with the divine, to grow closer with the divine. He says, in your life, there are going to be constant demands for your time and attention. How are you going to decide which of those demands gets resources? He says, the trap many people fall into is to allocate their time to whatever screams loudest and dedicate their talent to whatever offers them the fastest reward. And that's a dangerous way to build a strategy. Now, I don't know if he knew he was heading toward death when he wrote this, but he goes on to say, when I have my interview with God, our conversation will focus on the individuals whose self-esteem I was able to strengthen, whose faith I was able to reinforce, whose discomfort I was able to assuage, a doer of good regardless of what assignment I had. Those are the metrics that matter in measuring my life. Now, I suggest that with every moment of your time, every decision you make about how to spend your energy, your money, your time, you are making a statement about what really matters to you. And it's worth evaluating every day. How have I responded? Am I becoming closer to a more perfect representation of divine love, of helping the divine bring us to a better, uplifted place in this world while we're inhabiting this world? Or am I static? Or have I slid back? And that's where the problem with small moral choices comes in, because it can be so easy in a moment to do something that isn't perhaps totally within my principles, totally ethical, but it's easier at the moment. And that's backsliding. He says, Christensen, it's easier to hold your principles 100% of the time than it is to hold them 98% of the time. And this is what I want, the source of my talk today and what I want to bring up. G.K. Chesterton, the writer who created the Father Brown Mystery Series, said something like this. I actually talked about this in a different form about evil back in February. But the quote from Father Brown is, "Men may keep a sort of level of good, but no man," or we can say no human, because he was writing in the late 1800s, and no human has ever been able to keep on one level of evil. The road goes down and down. And Christensen says the same thing. It's easier to hold your principles 100% of the time, keep a level, than 98% when you're letting yourself be sucked to lower energy, to things that are farther away from the divine. And he says, keep in mind the destination. He said, I had thought the destination what was important, but it turned out it was the journey, which means every day it's worth evaluating. Have I accomplished something that helps achieve what I'm called to do? Have I walked away from it? Have I kept at least a level of good or raised it within my life? Or have I taken a step downward and I need to start hauling myself back out? It certainly helps that we have the still small voice of God within that we can choose to listen to. It helps that we have an innate sense of good that we can nurture and allow to help us make wise decisions. And they may be very small decisions. I had an occasion last week, someone called about a book we have for sale on Books for the Needy. And she wanted to make sure it was in the condition she wanted and so forth. I went and got the book. It was a fairly expensive book. And I told her what I saw. It was in like new condition. It looked like no one had ever opened it. And she said, well, do you want me to order through Libris, which is where we had it listed, or would you like me to pay you direct so you don't have to pay a Libris their fee? Well, it was tempting. 25% is what we pay a Libris. And 25% on a $100 book, that's a little extra money. And I found myself tempted. And then I realized if I looked in the mirror after I'd done that, I would not be as happy with the person I saw there, because I would have broken faith with the company that had actually made the contact for us. That's just one small example. I hope I seldom fall into the less than optimal. Oh gosh, there was a Nashville comic whose name I'm now forgetting, who said, it doesn't matter, and this is approximation because I don't have it in front of me. It doesn't matter if you sweep the street, milk a cow, program a computer, raise a child, take care of the herding. If you're doing the best you can, the best you know how, then you're a success. If you're failing to do the best that you know how, then you're not being successful. Every time we make a small moral choice that is less than our best, less than reflective of divine love and honor, we're being less than successful. Going back to Christensen, he said, the smallest things I do in a day need to reflect the largest ideas about who I am, where I want to go, and what my responsibilities are. So all of us every day face decisions that will either make, support, or break our sense of identity, our sense of purpose. It's the everyday mundane stuff that ultimately defines us in the end. How we spend our time, how we treat people in every interaction we have in a given day, whether we choose to compromise our principles just this once because it's expedient to do so. All of us have the capacity for slipping on the path, or as he says, all of us are capable of profound moral decay. The wonderful part is that the divine loves us enough that it welcomes us to pull ourselves up back to where we were on the path toward closer and closer godhood. So with that as the message, I recently came across two different prayers written by Amish that they say themselves that seemed appropriate as a reflection on the fact that every day is a new day for us to make choices, to walk toward the divine, or to do small pieces of moral decay. It's from a book called A Day in the Life of the Amish. So the first one was, and this was a morning prayer. So here hath been dawning another new day. Then wilt thou let it slip useless away. And then another Amish wrote in the evening before they went to bed, out of eternity this new day was born, into eternity at night to return. So every day is a new day for us to move forward, to stay static, to slide backwards. Every day is a day we have full choice to follow our calling, to lift this place up, the people around us up, to bring more good to the hurting, to bring more good to the happy. Dear God, thank you for this community, for this community that shares love, concern, holds each other up, supports each other, loves each other, loves you. A community that together is seeking to find each our own separate path closer to you, to build you within us, to live within you, to represent you on the outside of this place. Thank you for guiding our feet and protecting us and educating us as we depart from here this day. And help us come back soon to share this community together and grow together again. We thank you for all the good you've poured down on us this last week, and you'll be pouring down on us this week. We promise to do our best to accept it, welcome it, and give you the gratitude and the appreciation. We say right now, thank you for all your love and all your good and all your support. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen.